It's early March in the high Arctic. It's still 40 degrees below zero, but now a watery sun brings 4 months of darkness to an end. A polar bear makes his way down to the coast. Weighing at least 400 kilos, he's the largest land carnivore on Earth. Over the winter, steep hillsides and gullies have gradually become rounded by drifts of snow, often as much as 2 meters deep. At this time of year, the snows reveal a hidden secret. A female polar bear gazes into this ice-bound world for the first time as she emerges from 5 months' incarceration beneath the snow. She sniffs the air for danger. She begins to pile up snow around the entrance. No one is quite sure why polar bears do this. But she is not alone. This is the first time her 2 cubs have left the warmth of the den and felt the bite of the outside air. The fur on her lower chest has become stained yellow by the milk she's suckled her cubs on during the months underground. Released from the confines of their icy prison, the cubs are eager to stretch and play. The pregnant female retreated into her den beneath the snow in early November, and a few weeks later, while winds raged outside, she gave birth in the warmth of her lair. The den consists of several chambers. Without feeding herself, she managed to suckle her cubs throughout the dark months of winter. The walls of the den are covered by scratch marks left by her claws as she carved out the hollow in the snow. By now, the cubs are already 4 months old and weigh about 11 kilos. The first time they leave the den, they spend only a few minutes outside. The nervous mother tries to summon them back towards the den, but the cubs are loath to exchange their white playground for the darkness of their winter home. At last, she manages to gather her unruly offspring together. But getting back inside the den is even harder than climbing out. The narrow entrance tunnel is a tight squeeze. Inside the living chamber, all three are tightly pressed together for warmth. On the mountain slopes, the female is spending more time outside the den. She suckles her cubs above ground on milk which is so rich in fat, it's more like cream. She remains beside the den for a couple of weeks, allowing her cubs to become acclimatized to the biting cold. During the 5 months she spent beneath the snow, the female has lost almost half her body weight. She's now desperate to hunt, but these last few days spent close to the den are vital to allow the cubs time to build up energy reserves. A few other creatures have braved the winter squalls and blizzards. Arctic foxes sniff beneath the snow to seek out any traces of kills made by bears. They are still in their full winter coats. After 2 weeks at the den, it's time to leave. Hunger drives her on towards the sea ice. In spring, wind and sea currents repeatedly split the solid sheet of land-fast ice into slabs which collide, forming jumbles of ice. The ridged surface of giant glaciers which border the sea remain unchanged. Seals move close to shore to give birth to their pups in chambers beneath the snow. The last thing many newborn seal pups see is the huge paw of a polar bear smashing through the roof of their lair. This male has spent all winter roaming the ice wastes alone, hunting adult seals when they come to their breathing holes for air. The white-coat pup is a welcome meal. Only a few weeks old, it's relatively easy to catch. At this time of year, newborn seals provide a vital source of sustenance for polar bears. The male concentrates on wolfing down the energy-rich skin and blubber. Hunger satisfied, he excavates a comfortable sleeping hole in the snow. With no predators, polar bears can afford to be off their guard and relax, even in broad daylight. Sleeping conserves energy, and polar bears spend a lot of time doing just that. Another female leads her 2 cubs down to the shore. Born the previous spring, both are still completely dependent on her for food and protection from aggressive males. Males will occasionally attack young bears, so this female is determined to stay out of his way. Polar bears are nomadic. They may cover as much as 1,000 kilometers of land and frozen sea each year on their continual search for prey. The female decides it's best to take no chances and makes off into the distance. Long before the snows have begun to melt, migratory birds return to the Arctic. Little auks arrive in their thousands to establish breeding territories on the rocky slopes. Snow buntings feed on sparse seeds scattered by the wind and lodged in the snow. Across the Arctic Circle with the coming of spring, bears are on the move. A mother with 2 one-year-old cubs stops to give them a chance to rest and suckle from her. A sudden squall of snow makes the going harder, especially for the cubs, as they head into the wind. They try to stay as close to their mother as possible, though one seems to lag further and further behind. Every so often, the female pauses to allow the trailing cub to catch up. When she rolls in the snow, the cubs do the same. This time, when she gets up to leave, the second cub seems to be unable to struggle to its feet. As the blizzard intensifies, the family lies down in the snow to seek shelter from the biting wind. The snow covering the bears' bodies indicates just how efficient an insulator their fur is, trapping all their body warmth close to the skin so that none escapes to melt the snow as it lands on their fur. The second cub hasn't fared so well. Lying just a few meters away from its mother, the sick cub has become almost buried beneath the snow and is now barely alive. She tries to rouse it, but gets no response. The cub is obviously too ill to continue any further. As the blizzard clears, the female spots a male in the distance, slowly approaching the family group. She moves towards him in an attempt to scare him away from the place where her dying cub is lying, but he still lingers nearby. Frantically, she returns to dig her frozen cub from the snow. But it's too late. In the end, she and her surviving cub are driven away from the tiny corpse. She still puts up one last valiant defense, but it's no use. Like so many polar bears who lose cubs to sickness, starvation, or injury, she's now left with only one cub to bring up to independence the following spring. The male remains behind to feed on the corpse. Though it's been known for a long time that adult males attack young bears, it was only recently discovered that polar bears are cannibals. By July in the Arctic, the land has become a tapestry of mosses and new grass shoots. The ice and snow transformed into meltwater streams. The bare rocks are quilted with Arctic flowers. Towering 150 meters above the shore are steep, rocky cliffs. Here, Huddled together on the narrow ledges, guillemots have set up breeding colonies high on the steep cliffs that fringe the shore. The narrow shelves are crowded and competition is intense. At all costs, they must nest at a great height and as close to the sea as possible. The survival of their chicks will depend on this. The auks are becoming restless. Their chicks stand nervously on the cliff edge. There is only one way off: down. One chick takes a leap into the void. Immediately, its parents launch themselves into the air, stalling to ensure that they remain close beside their chick, barely managing to glide on its tiny, outstretched wings. One by one, other chicks take the plunge, each accompanied by anxious parents. One chick has landed far inland. Its parents have missed its departure, and it'll have to reach the sea alone. Hardly a match for these powerful skewers, the tiny chick somehow manages to fight the birds off. Then it's forever downwards. The chick seems to be made of rubber, and though exhausted by its rapid and bumpy descent, it's unharmed as it finally reaches the water. It now becomes clear why it's so vital that each chick is accompanied by its parents at the precise instant that it hits the water. Pink-footed geese have laid eggs on a rocky outcrop. Eggs are an important source of food for the Arctic fox at this time of year. But the geese are equal to the battle. Summer in the Arctic is all too brief. As temperatures fall, females and their cubs will spend the winter patrolling the snows. In the most severe storms, they make temporary shelters in the snow. Only pregnant females den throughout the winter months. The ice bears move about in the snowfields in perpetual darkness, like great galleons out in a sea storm. Only the moon casts a diffuse light on cloudless nights, and occasionally the aurora borealis, the northern lights, illuminates the cold world below. It's spring once more, and a mother takes her 2-year-old cub down to the shore to teach him one of the most important lessons of his life: how to hunt seals. Deep in the frozen inlets where the glaciers meet the sea ice, ringed seals congregate and haul out to bask in the spring sun. But they're nervous creatures, always alert for polar bear attacks. At the slightest sound of creaking ice, they slip through their breathing holes to safety. Beneath the ice, the water is insulated from the worst of the cold and never freezes. A female seal only leaves her newborn pup alone in its snow lair beside her breathing hole when she has to feed. Out on the sea ice, the mother and her cub are hunting. Their sense of smell is astonishing. A polar bear can pick up the scent of a dead seal from several kilometers away. She moves purposefully across the melting ice, signaling him to follow, but he hangs back and playfully snatches a mouthful of snow. Polar bears obtain most of their fresh water not from snow, but from the breakdown of fat in their bodies. She's heading towards the jumble of ice beneath the glacier's tongue, a likely place for ringed seal lairs. The young bear has learnt about the changing nature of ice as he followed his mother over the last 2 years, the longest time polar bears ever spend together. But he cannot expect to remain with his mother much longer. This may be the last chance he will have to benefit from her experience and hunting skills. The cub can smell the seal pup beneath the snow, but he's too late. His mother has already made the kill. For the moment, he will share it with her. Arctic foxes make a habit of following the tracks of polar bears in the hope that some scrap or other will come their way. But often, there are few pickings to be had once the bears have finished with the carcass. Even in April, the weather is fickle, and in just a few minutes the landscape can vanish beneath a blizzard of snow. Adult bears tend to avoid each other, apart from in the spring when males seek out receptive females. Approached by a young male, the mother is wary. She has good reason to be nervous. He may be more interested in attacking her cub for food than viewing her as a potential mate. The adults circle each other. A male will follow a female for a couple of weeks until she's ready to mate. But this young male is too immature to have much chance of success. The female is interested, but is torn between the need to mate and loyalty to her older offspring. The cub keeps his distance. At 2 years, he's on the verge of independence. The mother retreats back to protect him, and the male heads off alone. Rocked by the ocean swell, the layer of ice which has united land and sea is beginning to crack. The spring breakup has begun once more. Within a couple of weeks, the 2-year-old is alone. His mother has finally left him to seek out a new mate. Now, he'll have to put into practice all that he's learnt, or he will starve. But it's not easy. Even an adult polar bear is rarely successful. It's thought that less than 1 in 50 hunting attempts ends in a kill. He can smell the seal lair beneath the snow. He waits for the pup to return. This one is empty. Earlier in the year, the newborn pups would have been trapped in the lair, unable to escape into the water until they'd built up an insulating layer of fat. Now they're older, the seal pups can slip silently into the water, long before the young bear breaks through the tough roof. Every attempt he makes is fruitless. At every lair he stands motionless, listening for movement beneath the snow before pouncing. But he has left it too late. Everywhere the land-fast ice is melting, and most of the ringed seal pups have left their lairs. If he's to stand any chance of finding food, he will have to follow the ice and the prey. By May, the sea ice has begun to retreat, leaving a clear expanse of open water for the first time. Throughout the Arctic, the polar ice cap retreats by as much as 50% during the course of the summer. Global warming may be accelerating this shrinkage, having unforeseen consequences for all Arctic wildlife, including its top predator, the polar bear. What ice remains is tearing apart, creating an expanse of floating ice plates. Spring breezes blow the loose blocks out to sea. The floes are the domain of bearded seals. These enormous mammals reach a weight of 350 kilos on a rich diet of shellfish. The bearded seal gets its name from its enormous stiff whiskers. These sensitive hairs are used to feel for food on the bottom. Unlike ringed seals, bearded seals breed on the isolated ice floes rather than landlocked ice. This makes it harder for bears to reach them without warning. The pups need to feed on their mother's rich milk in order to build up their fat layer. But for the first few days after birth, Their thick fur helps keep them warm. Unfortunately, some females choose ice blocks which remain fused to the land. This 3-day-old pup has been born in a dangerous place. Its mother remains nearby, keeping a watchful eye. A hungry young bear is attracted by the smell, but he has been far too obvious in his approach. Unlike ringed seal pups, the bearded seals are sufficiently well insulated with fat to allow them to enter the water only a day or so after birth. Polar bears are not above scavenging. He comes across the blood-spattered evidence of another polar bear's successful attack on a seal lair, but the remains of the seal have been removed from the site of the kill. He's not the only guest at the feast. Ivory and glaucous gulls pick over the bones. Meticulously, he tears every morsel of flesh from the gaunt ribs. Though this will sustain him for a while, he needs the fat-rich blubber of a fresh kill. Polar bears are able to survive for up to 9 months on their fat reserves. During hard times, they switch their body into an energy-conserving state. But spring is the time when they build up their fat reserves for the winter. It's quite common for an adult polar bear to walk 100 kilometers in order to achieve one successful seal predation. The Arctic fox is equally desperate for food. It's still too early for bird eggs, and he has a family to feed. Patches of brown summer coat are already visible beneath his molting winter pelt. He grabs both seal flippers and makes off towards his den with his booty. Far out to sea, old fjord ice drifts on the currents. All the seals are now on free-floating icebergs like these. In places, fox and bear tracks still remain on the surface, all that's left to portray its origins. Ancient glaciers cover vast areas of the Arctic. They creep across the land, moving imperceptibly downhill towards the sea. But some glaciers surge rapidly, moving a few meters each day. For many animals and birds, the open water creates ideal feeding conditions. But for the polar bears, open water provides no food at all. For seals need ice, and polar bears need seals. This is when polar bears reveal unexpected skills. They can dive and swim well, and can even launch a deadly attack on swimming seals. They are really sea bears, buoyed up by the thick layer of fat and well adapted to paddle with their front feet. They can reach speeds of 5 kilometers an hour, and they have been known to swim 100 kilometers non-stop. An adult female has killed a seal hauled out on an iceberg. Seals are insulated by a layer of blubber up to 10 centimeters thick. It's this that makes an adult seal so attractive to a hungry polar bear. The young male picks up the scent of the fresh kill. As the hunter is a female, he will try to fight for a share if he can. He wouldn't risk it with a larger male. He swims silently towards the feeding female. She stands guard over the carcass, but there is no way she can defend her kill from a much stronger male. Even so, as he helps himself to the carcass, a tug of war develops over the prized skin and blubber. But there's plenty to share around. Unlike other bears, polar bears are truly carnivorous, with powerful flesh-shearing incisors. A male may eat as much as 10% of his body weight in under half an hour. Now the darkness of winter is replaced by the midnight sun, which hardly dips beneath the horizon, even at night. The summer is short-lived. All too soon, clouds block the sun and the first blizzards of autumn begin. The young bear is not put out by the cold, for the white fur is hollow, directing the rays of the sun down towards the black skin, which quickly absorbs what little warmth there is to be had. If he survives this first winter on his own, his chances are high. As the temperature falls, the water begins to thicken. By November, the sun hugs closer and closer to the horizon, until it sinks beneath the snows for the last time. It will not be seen again for the next 4 months.
Chitwan National Park, Nepal. 3 men on an elephant. One of them is a wildlife artist, Wolfgang Weber. Since early times, people have painted animals. It seems to have been a way for us to seize the essence of wild creatures for posterity. Wolfgang captures this essence of an animal with a few swift pencil strokes. His love of nature has drawn him to the Earth's wilderness areas for inspiration. On his travels, he has met many people driven by the same ambition. One was wildlife filmmaker Dieter Plager, who has made over 60 natural history films for survival. Before long, an idea was born. It seemed like a great idea to look at nature through the eyes of an artist, observed by a cameraman. Both Wolfgang and Dieter were known for the extraordinary lengths they will go to get close to their subject. In Texas, wearing protective masks, they both roped 150 feet down into a bat cave to film and to sketch the most secret world of bats. This is one of the many experiences they shared whilst making this film. Back in his studio, sketches rekindle his memory of the scene, and against a background of the classical music which inspires him, he creates his own unique watercolor impressions.
I love to listen to music when I'm sitting in my studio. It inspires my work and my imagination, and it's much more fun to do.
The oceans hold an almost hypnotic fascination for him. He loves the movement of the sea, its many moods. Its size and power makes everything else seem insignificant. Wolfgang travels light wherever he goes. A pen and paper is all he needs, unlike the heavily laden cameraman. He follows his subjects wherever they are to observe them in their natural environment. Wolfgang has watched the albatross skim great waves and cross the vast southern oceans. He has visited every continent except Antarctica and traveled in many different ways, from the orthodox to the bizarre. The scratches made by suckerfish on the dolphins illustrate his acute power of observation. Wolfgang has evolved a distinctive style which is free from the constraints of realism, but he believes it is necessary to learn the skills of painting realistically. Many of his own illustrations have been used in encyclopedias and natural history books, where precise detail is essential. However, in his paintings, he has the freedom to create his own impressions of his subjects. One journey took him to the Galapagos Islands. This is the world of the Galapago, or giant tortoise. The 400-pound heavyweights lumber around at the same leisurely pace that they have moved all their lives, which may be as long as 250 years. Here, Wolfgang's speed with a pencil is not put to the test. The Galapagos Islands belong to Ecuador and lie 600 miles west of the South American mainland. It was here Charles Darwin found vital evidence for his theory of evolution, the basis of his book, The Origin of Species. The dramatic rock formations of the islands were formed through volcanic activity on the seabed, pushing gradually up through the surface to be scarred and worn by the winds of time. At the blowhole on Española Island, the sea is forced through a deep crevice in the cliff face and explodes in a furious spray. Few beaches offer an artist this kind of opportunity, to lie on the sand and sketch sea lion pups at arm's length. Everything arouses their curiosity. Like most Galapagos creatures, they have no fear of man. They are naturally inquisitive, and more gather to investigate this strange creature in their midst. A big bull sea lion, the beachmaster, is mostly concerned about his females and comes up the beach to inspect his resting harem. Having satisfied himself that Wolfgang poses no threat, he heads back to the water. He gives a rather amusing exit performance, like a chicken drumstick being coated in breadcrumbs. Effortlessly, he glides into his true element. Each of Wolfgang's paintings reflects his personal experience on location. Just offshore, he's lucky to see a marine iguana feeding on seaweed, a prehistoric-looking creature which arrived here many thousands of years ago from the South American mainland and has adapted to this harsh environment. Using his pencil drawing for reference and inspired by the music of Beethoven, Wolfgang creates a painting in watercolors, shown here in speeded up action. Here on the island of Fernandilla, the marine iguanas and cormorants live close together, sharing the same beach. This young bird seems extremely interested in Wolfgang's sketch of a cormorant on her nest nearby. On these remote and rugged islands, there's an air of tranquility where time seems to stand still. On the rocky cliffs of Hispaniola, Wolfgang finds one of his favorite birds, the albatross. This is the Galapagos waved albatross. Its only breeding ground is here. The strange sideways nodding is part of one of the most elaborate courtship rituals in the animal world. Swift sketches capture all the elements of motion. Albatrosses take 9 months to raise their single chick. Then they head out over the southern oceans. They do not return for months, spending most of the time on the wing. Another takeoff, a long, lumbering run, not unlike a jumbo jet heading for the sky. And for Wolfgang too, the time has come to leave this special place and fly to new horizons. Wolfgang's memory of events is very strong, but his sketchbooks are the key to all his work. This one reminds him of a recent visit to North America. Here he experienced the wide-open spaces of Alaska, a land with its own aura of mystery, with the knowledge that you're in one of the last unspoiled wilderness areas on Earth. This is the cold and windswept world of the Alaskan brown bear, and one of the most rewarding experiences is to see a female with cubs. Like most young animals, they play fight and tussle, constantly on the move. At moments like this, his pencil is never still. The female has come to catch fish. The salmon run has started. Every year, the bears gather from miles around to join the feast. Apart from berries, it's one of their major food sources at the end of summer, their last chance to store up fat for the long winter hibernation. The bears can see underwater and grab any fish which comes within reach. A large salmon means nourishment for hungry cubs. Wolfgang walks further up the river, where another bear is also hunting for food. His experience of animal behavior, acquired over many years, gives him the confidence to stand his ground. And also the knowledge when to retreat. Again, Wolfgang moves upstream. A quick glance reveals bears fishing. During the annual salmon run, the fish swim upriver to spawn and die. Male bears will not accept other males near them when they are fishing. When another bear arrives, this bear knows he has to move on. The intruder is obviously a higher-ranking male, and so he slowly withdraws rather than risk a confrontation. The newcomer takes up the best position. Sapped of their strength, many fish are easy prey. Wolfgang's painting recaptures the drama. Colorado in autumn is a feast for the eyes. The old western train of the Durango-Silverton Railroad winds its way along the narrow pass above the wild waters of the Animas River. Wolfgang admires the adventurous life of the cowboys and their closeness to nature. He joins them as they drive their cattle down the mountain, bringing them to lower pastures where they will spend the coming winter. One man spots a cow which has suffered a painful encounter with a porcupine.
Get back! One of you might get her front leg and just bend her legs back.
The quills have broken off and lodged in its nose and mouth, making it almost impossible for the animal to feed.
Got her now, ain't you?
It's hard to heal them when they're standing still.
Without this prompt attention, it might have died an agonizing death.
You gotta get them to bouncing away from you. You can catch that.
Is the coffee hot, Dave?
With the cowboys, Wolfgang enjoys the friendly warmth of a campfire and barbecue at the end of a long, hard day.
Steak, Dave. Yeah, that looks like it's going to be just right. We like some rare. How do you like your steak? Medium. One thing about a campfire, you're always hot on the front side, freezing to death on the back side.
Winter follows swiftly on the heels of autumn in the Rockies. He finds his first subject in a red fox searching for food. Wolfgang switches to snowshoes to cross the deep snowfields. There's something dark moving in the snow. It's a young mountain lion. In fact, there are a pair of cubs. Ignoring the bitter cold, Wolfgang gets out his sketchbook. The cubs join their mother. They seem oblivious to the winter cold. A thick coat of fur, right down to the tip of their tail, protects the cubs from the sub-zero temperatures. Concealed from view, Wolfgang works as fast as his freezing fingers will allow. Movement attracts the cub's attention. The female begins to stalk. She has 3 mouths to feed and cannot pass up the opportunity of a kill. The light snowshoe hare bounds across the snowfield, but the heavier mountain lion sinks into the snow, which slows her down. Wolfgang likes to capture dynamic motion, the energy and tension, the explosion of action. One of the cubs tries to join the chase, and the little hare escapes. Sliding down into the bowels of the earth, the cavern seems to swallow the tiny figure descending on a rope out of the sun and into the darkness 150 feet below, entering the secretive world of bats. In caves like this, where the air is hot and moist, 20 to 30 million Mexican free-tailed bats live, clinging to the walls and roof in total darkness. Wolfgang cannot breathe in here without a mask, and as he sketches, droppings shower down from the bats above him. The heat generated by all these tiny bodies is almost overwhelming. By sunset, the incredible swirling exodus begins. Those bats which emerge first, while it's still light, must run the gauntlet of hawks and falcons. It takes hours for all the bats to emerge and spread out over the surrounding countryside, catching up to 250 tons of insects during the night. In the sun's dying light, red-tailed hawks snatch a meal before heading for their night roost. By destroying whole colonies of bats and their habitat, man does far more harm than birds of prey can. Wolfgang hopes that by painting bats and their natural predators, we will become increasingly aware of their tremendous importance and begin to look upon them, if not with affection, then at least with respect and understanding. the light fades and the rest of the bats will leave their cave in darkness, long into the night. Karnali Badia National Park in western Nepal. The fiery sunrise belies the chill of a January morning as Wolfgang departs on elephant back from Tiger Top's Karnali Lodge with the team of trackers. The riverbed is a good place to look for tracks and find the great one-horned rhinoceros. This is the best time to go looking for animals. It's still cool and the air is filled with the mysterious sounds of the jungle. There's an old saying that if a man looks for a tiger, the tiger sees the man 100 times for each time the man sees him. As the elephants came closer, the tiger disappeared into the long grass. Their plan was to take Wolfgang to the river bank, where the trackers had found fresh tiger tracks the night before. He walks the last few hundred yards alone. The ever-watchful langur monkeys sounded the alarm. They could hear the tigers were very close, but to see them was another matter. Wolfgang hoped he might be lucky enough to catch a glimpse of one. Suddenly, close by, the tigers roared. The tiger is the super predator, the biggest of the big cats. This male was in peak condition. It was the moment Wolfgang had been waiting for. The tiger reappeared, searching for the female, and perhaps uneasy because the elephants were still in the area. Early morning, when it's cool, is the ideal time to watch big cats. As the day gets hotter, the tigers rest in the shade. Wolfgang and the men were going to do likewise. He was elated. He'd achieved his goal and had seen a tiger in the heart of the jungle. Little did he know what the afternoon would bring.
Just crossing the road, and we got it on the road only.
Content and exhausted, he fell asleep, his diary unfinished, his sketches incomplete.
This was a particular exciting moment in Nepal. We are riding in the dense green forest, and we found two tigers, a male and a female. First I saw only the eyes and the upper part of the head, looking through the green bushes of the dense forest, and suddenly he came out with a huge leap and going for my elephant, and my elephant went for him as well, and it was like an explosion in front of my elephant, and only about 3 yards in front of me. Incredible. And the sound, it was so, you can't describe it, you must hear it. I was excited and I was happy to have an experience like that. I didn't feel any fear. It was funny. I never had the feeling that he would attack or hurt the elephant or me, or the elephant, the mahout. But he just wanted to show us, don't go further on, don't go closer, and about 30 seconds afterwards I had my first sketch of the attacking tiger already. Fantastic experience for an animal painter if he goes for days and days looking for tigers, and they are very, very difficult to discover and to find in the wild, and therefore I was very happy to have an experience like that.
Wolfgang's paintings are his way to show people the magic of nature and to express with a brush his feelings about the world's increasingly fragile wild places and their fascinating diversity of life.
This land of snow-clad volcanoes is home to giant brown bears. It's called Kamchatka and lies in Russia's far east. But the bears are not alone. There are strangers on the land. Until recently, Kamchatka was closed to outsiders, but now, with its borders relaxed and the economy crumbling, the bears are coming increasingly under fire. First impressions can be misleading. Despite its menacing appearance and the roar of its engines, this Soviet helicopter's mission is bear-friendly. Its crew are scientists who want to preserve the bears, not persecute them. They're mapping out bear movements across thousands of square kilometers of Kamchatka's inhospitable landscape. The easiest way to track a bear is by fitting it with a radio collar, but first, they need to sedate it.
Go in, Victor. Take her. She's a good one.
The man about to dart the bear is researcher Bill Leacock.
When we do get off a good shot, the drug Tilazol usually puts her to sleep within 5, maybe 10 minutes, sometimes even less. Yulia, looks like the Tilazol's worked. But make sure she's out. I really don't like darting bears. I feel like I'm betraying their trust. But this is the only way we can get good data on bear movements.
Bill Leacock is a long way from home. His research is funded by New York's Wildlife Conservation Society.
Our research team is made up of 2 Kamchatka biologists, Ilya Shevchenko and Alexander Nikinorov, and myself. We've been working together for several years. We've got the whole operation down to a T.
Okay, down. Yeah, she's pretty small, and we're gonna have to bring it in all the way, I think, on the last notch here. We'll try it. We'll just cut some of this off first to check. This will take one position every 9 hours. And that'll give us a lot of information on her, if it does get that many positions. Ilya, could you take her temperature?
Take me.
I think that's just fine. Okay, she's all right. She's got about 14 breaths per minute or so.
Once we have the collar on the bear, we must weigh her before she recovers. Adult bears here in the sanctuary can weigh up to 600 kilograms. But this is a young, small sow. takes us about 1 hour to do all of our work on the bear. Then it is time to let her recover. We'll check back with her to make sure she's safe and coming round all right.
The Kamchatkan winter lasts for nearly 7 months. But well before spring is on the horizon, new life has already begun. Deep in a snowbank, under a protective canopy of alder roots, a pregnant bear dug her den last November. Although she mated last summer, the fertilized embryos didn't begin to develop until she was in the peak of condition when she entered her den in the autumn. After only a 3-month pregnancy, the newborn cubs are a tiny fraction of their mother's huge size. In the coldest months, there's no food available for Kamchatka's bears. They spend most of this time asleep underground. But as winter comes to an end, they start to leave their dens. With the bears now active again, Bill Leacock is able to resume work in the South Kamchatka Sanctuary. In this vast wilderness, some 2,000 square kilometers in size, the team have a chance to study the bears in a natural environment, something which is no longer possible in many other places where brown bears live.
Kamchatka is a relatively unspoiled land, largely without the massive highways and the cities and the other human debris that's knocked the hell out of brown bears in Europe and North America. And bears are such great creatures. In the spring, it's like seeing friends again after a long absence. There she is. This male is trying to convince the sow that he'd be a good mate. At first, she's not quite sure, but after he starts acting almost like a playful cub, she warms up to him.
During their big sleep, the bears have been living off their body fat. When they first leave their dens, they're still in good condition, but deep snow still covers the land. Under these conditions, even the red fox finds food hard to find. With their enormous bulk, the bears need a good deal more than a fox to fill their bellies. Even if they dig beneath the thick mantle of snow, there's nothing for them to eat. But at this time of year, there's a much greater threat to their well-being: bear hunting. In Kamchatka, bear hunting is legal outside wildlife reserves. The hunters come largely from abroad. The members of this party of wealthy Americans are paid handsomely to travel to this wilderness with one aim in mind: to shoot the biggest bears they can.
This is a good bear hunt. 3 meter bear.
What's the name? 3 meter?
3 meter.
3 meter bear.
Morning, and the hunting party is ready to set off. There are hunting seasons in both spring and autumn. In spring, with snow still deep on the ground, the hunters have the advantage with their motorized sledges, but it can still take a lot of searching to find a suitable bear.
Yeah, I see. Climbing up straight up the mountain. Yeah. I can see with my binoculars now.
Where is he? Right in the middle of that fish.
See that one ridge right there?
Yeah, that black
He's
one.
He's to the left, yeah, to the left of it, in that dish.
Yeah.
In that little draw
Right,
there.
that,
He's climbing straight up.
get it better there.
But the bear is too far away, so the hunters move on.
It's a big bear.
Big bear?
Yes. Very big bear.
At the end of several days hunting, 2 bears have been shot.
Nice bear, Jack.
This probably be my only bear I'll ever kill. And I'm getting so old that this probably be my last chance of ever killing a bear. But I've always wanted to kill a bear all my whole life, and it's the first one I've ever killed.
What I'm going to do is a full body mount because I believe the animal deserves that.
1,000 bears are shot legally each year in Kamchatka's hunting reserves, but it's becoming more difficult to find good-sized bears. This group are lucky. They all have a trophy to take home. Kamchatka is one of the Earth's volcanic hotspots. It's on the Pacific Rim of Fire, where 2 plates of the Earth's surface overlap. Here, active volcanoes still belch forth among hundreds of dormant cones. Because its crust is weak, the Earth's heat is close to the surface. In some places, the land is seething with life. In a hidden valley, geysers pump boiling water, and there are hot springs and bubbling mud pools. Spring has already arrived here because the Earth's heat produces a microclimate of warmth, and in the mineral-rich soils, plants grow rapidly. Bears are attracted to the valley floor, seeking out the flush of new grass. It's their first proper food of the year. Sometimes they feed very close to the hot springs and geysers, but they're careful to avoid the scalding fountains of water they produce. Kurilskoye Lake is an old volcanic crater, and on its shore a small settlement of cabins is home to scientist Bill Leacock and his family.
My family and I usually arrive in April or May, well before school is out. So my wife teaches our daughters, Grace and Nina, back at the camp.
Bill usually doesn't have very far to go to work.
The easiest way for us to track bear movements is from out on the lake itself. My colleague Ilya is a well-known marine mammal specialist. His 10 years studying sea otters has made him the best boatman I've ever seen, which is important in these unpredictable waters.
Here, why don't we go ahead and cut it, Ilya, and I'll try and get a reading, okay? Go ahead and turn her off.
Each of the bear collars emits a different signal, so Bill and Ilya know which bear's movements they're following at any given time.
There, we've got a signal. Maybe it's 25 or 26.
This year, Bill is trying out a new contraption to allow him to catch and collar any bears which come close to his cabin by the lake. It's called a culvert trap and was originally designed in North America for catching nuisance bears in the national parks.
The culvert trap works like this. We've got a bear wandering around. He gets a good whiff of the rotten fish in the trap. He comes up to it, probably rather cautiously. We've got a little bit of bait spread around. He might snack on a piece here and there. He might pick it up, chow down on it a little bit. He sees the real meal back there, crawls in. Probably grabs it with his paw. And then we got a bear.
In spring, Kamchatka's rivers become rushing torrents of meltwater. But even in May and June, the mountain slopes are still snow-covered. It's only now that female bears start to bring their new cubs above ground. The cubs are now 4 months old and still suckling from their mother. It's quite a noisy affair. A female bear normally gives birth every 3rd or 4th year. She often digs her den beneath tree roots which provide a natural roof. Bears also den in caves and rock crevices. The female eats snow to quench her thirst. The cubs are starting to explore the world outside the den, always under the watchful eye of their mother. A hawk owl keeps a close eye on the playful antics going on below. Each day, the cubs are becoming a little more lively, but their mother is still very much in charge, and every so often she sends them packing into the den. A pair of willow tits are excavating a nest hole nearby. Later, they align their nests with bear's hair collected from around the den. Soon the cubs are strong enough to follow their mother. After 2 weeks, the family will leave the den for good. Because male bears are the biggest threat to young cubs, for the next few weeks the mother will keep her family high above the snow line, where in the deep snow she can easily outpace them. The enormous peninsula which is Kamchatka juts into the North Pacific Ocean. Almost totally surrounded by the sea, it has a very long coastline with its own rich wildlife. In spring, bears often come down to scavenge along the beaches. They'll eat almost anything, including kelp, shellfish, and all manner of things thrown up by the fierce storms of winter. They're even thought to catch sea otters sometimes, and to feed on the carcasses of walruses and seals. Bears are known to be indiscriminate scavengers. Bill and Ilya are curious whether they could have been tempted by a rotting whale carcass.
Looks like a fin whale. Ilya, how long has this been here, do you think?
Maybe 2 weeks.
There's been a few bear here, Ilya, not that many yet, though. Man, these rocks are slick with fat. Look here where the bears have been clawing in at it. Been dragging it off. There's fat over there. They haven't broken into it yet, though. It kind of smells like my borscht a little bit.
But the bears seem to have deserted the whale in favor of tastier fare. Thousands upon thousands of little fish are being washed up along the beaches. They're a type of smelt called capelin, and they arrive in a 3-yearly cycle to spawn along Kamchatka's coast. As the huge shoals of little fish come close inshore, they become stranded along the tide line. The bears, with their powerful sense of smell, soon know when there are fish on the beaches. The Capelin Bonanza attracts bears from far and wide. A lot of the fish become buried in the sand at high tide. As they start to decay, the bears dig down eagerly in search of them. Even when feeding, bears are always aware of what their neighbors are doing. When a huge bear swaggers onto the scene, the dinner party scatters. When capelin are being washed up, the bears sometimes gather in unusually large numbers. Although often thought of as antisocial loners, Bill Leacock sees them in a different light.
Many people think of bears as essentially solitary creatures. And if they do meet, they fight. From our observations, we've found that it is usually quite the reverse. In many cases, they seem outright affectionate.
If brown bears are more social than people think, even Bill would admit that there are definite exceptions. Mothers with cubs will not breed again this year. But adult males will sometimes kill young cubs so they can breed with the mother again and father her next litter. So mother bears are very wary of big males. The enormous male has recently been in a fight. He makes the others nervous. But he's not looking for trouble. Soon, all the bears will be moving towards the lakes and rivers for the peak of their year. The annual salmon fishing season is about to start. In Kamchatka, July sees the start of the annual run of sockeye salmon, or nirka, as they're known in Russia. The salmon return every year from the Pacific Ocean to the rivers and lakes to spawn. It's an important date in the bears' calendar, too. The salmon run provides them with a fast food takeaway of protein-rich fish. As they gorge on the salmon, the bears start to replenish the fat reserves they've been living on since last autumn. Fishing skills come with age. Younger bears must learn how to catch their own. For scientist Bill Leacock and his family, the fish season is their best opportunity during the year to observe the bears at close range.
You see Venus over there, Grace? She just ran right over there. See her? Take a look. I thought she was marking the tree, but she isn't. She's just sitting there looking for sockeye. Yeah, just being lazy. Incredible. She's probably 120. Only after being in the company of bears for hundreds of hours have we been able to build up a certain harmony, a certain trust. Bears have their own code of conduct. We try to imitate it. They know what they can expect from us, and we can read their behavior. They end up carrying on with their lives right around us. Very rarely do bears come to actual blows. They usually take steps to avoid fights, especially at the fishing sites. Each bear is an individual, though. We've come to identify their particular quirks. For some reason, one sow, Vivian, has a real antipathy for another, Venus. She always has.
While most of the salmon spawn in the lakes, others travel on into the rivers and streams. Here, the females hollow out depressions in the riverbed to lay their eggs. But many no longer reach their spawning grounds. Poachers are estimated to take hundreds of thousands of salmon as they make their way into the rivers and lakes. It escalates the problem already caused by commercial overfishing. Salmon poaching is also very wasteful. The male fish are discarded altogether, while the females are slit open for their ripe eggs known locally as red caviar. Once they've been stripped, they're dumped. Salmon poaching is becoming increasingly rife, even in protected areas like the South Kamchatka Sanctuary, where Bill Leacock studies his bears.
Poaching of both bears and salmon has become a serious threat to this sanctuary. Look at this camouflage netting. Look at the rafts. Look at all the metal that they brought in here. This place was built for 3 people. There was a wood burning stove in here. Before we came here and destroyed it, there were 14 barrels of caviar. Obviously, this stuff had to be brought in by helicopter. It has to be organized at some higher level.
In Kamchatka today, there's a thriving black market in red caviar. Most of it goes to Moscow and Japan, where it commands an increasingly high value. With soaring prices, more and more salmon are being prevented from reaching their spawning grounds each year to satisfy the insatiable demand for their eggs. But since the near collapse of the Russian economy, people in Kamchatka, as elsewhere, are being forced more and more to rely on illicit means to eke out a living. This is my father's house. He left it to me, but I have no money to make repairs in order to leave it to my descendants. It is a picture of the wrong use of our natural wealth. We bury fish, yet live in hardship. And of course, if there are prohibitions on fishing, people who have relied on fishing to sustain them throughout their lives will be forced to contravene these laws and become poachers. But they are only poachers in name, for fishing is their traditional way of life. Despite poaching, the salmon struggle to continue their age-old migration upstream. But in the shallow rivers, they make easy pickings for the bears. Vivian's cubs have been watching from the bank. They know whenever their mother has caught a fish and quickly join her. Now, in their second year, they'll continue sharing her catch until they become independent in a few months' time. One cub is smaller than the others. Bill knows that last year Vivian accidentally crushed its leg. The accident stunted its growth, and now the cub doesn't always manage to get its fair share. In between fishing sessions, the bears rest to digest their catch, while younger ones have the chance for some play or even courtship. Bill has found that mothers with cubs tend to use the smaller rivers, which, although they contain good fishing, are rarely visited by the adult males. Here, their cubs are safer. This litter of 4 has only just come down with their mother from the den they were born in on the higher slopes. The mother bear is feeding on willow. Even at the height of the salmon run, bears like to vary their diet. Kamchatka's rich natural resources mean female bears here can often produce 3 or 4 cubs in a litter. The fishing season gives Bill extra insight into the bears' lives.
When bears gather along streams, we sometimes see ones we've already collared. Our telemetry work has shown that the sow we've called Sputnik is faithful to a very small home range. We first met Sputnik when her cub, Edith, was 5 months old. At the same time that we collared her mother, we also fitted Edith with a miniature ear transmitter, because she was too small to be fitted with a collar. One day we were on the Vechenkia River, and my wife Tip noticed that something was wrong with one of Vivian's cubs. Last year when the cubs were little, Vivian fell on the smallest one, breaking his leg. Boris, the middle-sized cub, hobbled into view. Now his leg was broken. This section of the river was becoming crowded. Boris couldn't keep up. He often got separated. There wasn't much Vivian could do. Soon Vivian is off fishing again. Then Tank shows up, a big male. It's the first time this year we saw an adult male on the river. It figures he shows up the day Boris is crippled. Boris can hardly climb a tree to escape. It doesn't matter, though. Tank is his usual self, only interested in catching sockeye. Vivian returns and the cubs calm down. Bears have an amazing capacity to survive and to heal from horrible wounds. But still, we didn't hold much hope for Boris. We didn't think he'd last a week.
It's not just individual bears which face problems. Large numbers are being killed annually, a combination of both legal and illegal hunting. I killed this bear 2 years ago. I bought a license, went to the hunting area, and shot him while he was feeding on berries. I needed a bear so that my family could eat meat. Of course, if a person has riches to hand, he won't part with them. Everything depends on getting money and how much wealth you can obtain. Bill and Ilya have found bears are now also being poached for their gallbladders. Bear gall fetches a high price as Chinese medicine.
One. Ilya, take a look at this. Looks like it was shot through the head. Doesn't look like a bear's been feeding on her.
And this time, they've even found another bear nearby.
Can you believe this, Ilya? 2 dead bears in about 20 meters.
Both animals.
Both of them slit right up the abdomen. All I've done is sliced open the abdomens on both of them, just taken the gallbladder, and left everything else to rot.
Some bears, like Vivian, learn to dive down and retrieve them. The salmon she brings to her cubs may now be days or even weeks old. And the cubs seem to have lost some of their appetite for salmon too. They're no longer in such a hurry to join their mother every time she brings a fish ashore. Amazingly and against all the odds, the family is still intact. The injured cub, Boris, has survived the intervening weeks, and now his leg has healed almost completely.
In the course of our work, we've become very attached to these bears. But we never forget they are wild animals. They're not the Winnie the Poohs that some people portray them to be. I don't believe they're man-eating killers either. They're just trying to get on with their lives. And we should treat them with respect.
The short Kamchatka summer will soon be over. Now for the bears, with autumn around the corner, fresh challenges lie ahead. Autumn is the time when Kamchatka's nomadic reindeer herders, the Aven and Koryak peoples, collect their herds together ready for the move from their summer pastures. Only a handful of these people are still refuseniks, unwilling to surrender their traditional way of life for a colorless urban existence. Instead, they still count their wealth in reindeer, which provide them with all their needs, including meat, milk, and hides. Even the reindeer's antlers are valuable. They're used as medicine in many Asian countries. Because the antlers consist of bone which is regrown annually, they can be harvested quite painlessly from the living deer. These people are also fur trappers, hunting wolverine, fox, and marmot. Although they occasionally kill bears too, they have never had any real impact on their numbers, unlike modern hunting and poaching. Now, though, it's time for them to leave the higher mountains and move their reindeer down to more sheltered pastures ready for the winter ahead. In Russia's far east, the summer lasts only 2 months. Already by early September, the alders and birches of the tundra are changing color. For the bears, too, it's a time of change. They've switched from a diet of fish to the new crop of fruits and berries, but they're still adding to the fat reserves they've already built up from the weeks of eating salmon. They're now in peak condition, with new, thick winter coats. And before the winter, there's one more harvest to come. Thick stands of pine bushes cover the tundra, and now their cones are ripening. The nuts inside the cones are rich in both protein and fat. In pine bush thickets, the bears frequently break off from feeding to scan their surroundings for danger. The family doesn't wait to find out if the strange bear is friendly. In a few weeks' time, the bears will start to seek out their winter dens again. For the Leacock family too, the season will soon be drawing to a close.
Come on, Munchkin.
But while the bears are still active, Bill can monitor their movements a little longer.
One with the male cub that we also catch. That's a 1.5-year-old.
Increasingly, we're wondering whether the bears we've come to view as friends are going to have a future. If the poaching of salmon and bears continues at this alarming rate, we have a real feeling they won't. But I'm convinced that the Russian people, with their love of bears, will end up solving these problems.
By November, the first snows of winter have already arrived. Even as the rivers freeze, some late salmon are still running upstream to spawn. Afterwards, like all the others before them, they'll weaken and die. Stella's sea eagles lead the cleanup operation. The salmon remains provide a lifeline for the huge eagles and for other scavengers throughout the winter. The bears are largely absent. Scraps of fish won't sustain them through the coming months, and many have already entered their winter dens. Adult males remain active the longest, and it's sometimes midwinter before they retire for their winter sleep. The bears will eat nothing until they emerge in spring. Then the cycle begins again. Next summer, the salmon will return and the bears will feast on them. Now snow and ice reclaim Kamchatka's forbidding landscape, freezing out all but the hardiest creatures. And while the blizzards rage and the scavengers eke out a living, deep in their dens underground, the bears slumber on, safe, at least until next year.